Hello and welcome to Business Today Television. I'm Karishma Asoodani and joining me today is the Chief Executive Officer of Vistara, Mr. Vinod Kannan. Thank you, sir, for joining us on this Chat on Business Today show. I'd like to ask you, to begin by asking you, how has the year been like in terms of your sales and bookings?
Firstly, thank you very much and great to meet you. I think if you're talking about 2022 for us, it's been a phenomenal year. I think you must have read as well from various reportages that aviation has kind of come back after the dulls of the last 2 years, 2020 and 21. So we are no different. I think we had a wonderful year in 2022, especially the second half. If you recall the first half in Jan-Feb, about 1 year ago, we still had the third wave with Omicron and everything else, where things slowed down. But I think from the start of this financial year, which is April, we've had a very, very positive response. For us, our load factors, which is our occupancy, has grown. Our sales, of course, revenue has grown. And since July, we've been the number 2 airline domestically in terms of market share. So obviously very promising and a great year for us.
Great. And like you mentioned, of course, the numbers are talking about you. Quarter 3 has been profitable for you. What are your views on the upcoming quarter? And also, do you see the pre-pandemic numbers to have been overtaken?
So let me talk about the numbers first. For the industry, I think we are just slightly short of pre-pandemic numbers in terms of domestic traffic. But for Vistara, we are way ahead. So just to give you context, we used to operate about 200 flights a day pre-pandemic. We are now hitting about 275. So that's about 30 to 40% more than what we used to do. And therefore, our passenger numbers are also much higher compared to pre-pandemic. So yes, for us, the answer is yes. And I think for the industry, we are getting there as well. We are just a little bit short, single digits. And I think this summer, hopefully, which is April to June, which will be the next peak, we will be definitely able to move ahead of that number. The key thing for us looking ahead for this quarter, demand still remains strong. I think we've seen people are still willing to fly and spend. It's also thanks to various things that are happening in the country. For example, G20, which is for us, for an airline like us, that's an important event because there are people flying around for those conferences. We've also seen leisure traffic still holding strong. Weddings are still going on. And for us, we've actually indexed and grown quite a bit on international. So we now connect almost 15 points internationally. We've just announced Mauritius recently from Bombay. So that has been a good engine of growth for us, and international traffic is still doing very well.
Great. You did talk about the international expansion, and that is my next question. In the years to come, how many destinations are you targeting? And also, I think you're looking at Hong Kong also as one of the destinations.
Yes, so we did operate during the pandemic. I mean, as much as we all had our fair share of battles during the pandemic, we did grow through the pandemic as an airline. In fact, we took delivery of aircraft even through the pandemic. And we did fly to some destinations such as Tokyo, we flew to Hong Kong, Incheon, which is Seoul. So these were all charters that we used to operate at that time under the bubble agreement. And therefore, these are all points that we will review again once we have the aircraft. Now, at this point in time, we fly to 31 domestic destinations. And as I said, we've announced or we've started operations to 15 international ones. As to how many more we are looking at, that's still that's work in progress. But to give you an indication, our fleet size, which is the number of aircraft we have, today sits at 53. And we will go up to about 70 by 2024. So we still have about 17 aircraft to come in, and those will be the engines of growth.
Great. And what is the expected timeline delivery of these aircrafts to come in?
This will happen from now, where we sit, to the end of 2024. So in the next, I would say, 12 to 18 months, I would get delivery of these 17 aircraft. There will be some aircraft leaving the fleet as well, some of the older aircraft that are going back to lessors. So the net increase, or the total increase overall, will be these 17.
Okay, and is this also one of the reasons why you're awaiting to start flights to the United States of America? That has been on your plan for a while.
Yes, it has, but it is also a function of aircraft deliveries. The 787, which is the wide-body aircraft, the Dreamliner, we've ordered 6 of them, but only 2 of them have been delivered to us. We've actually taken one more on lease, which is like a short-term lease, which we wanted to do because the 787 deliveries were delayed. So we still have 4 more coming. It's a function of when we get them. It's also a function of how we can use them. It may be to Europe, it may be to US, but at this point in time, we are very happy with our Europe operations.
Great. Also reminds me and brings me to this point that I think by the end of last year, close to November or December, there were also problems with direct flights to Frankfurt and Paris by Vistara. Has that issue been completely solved?
Yes. So one of the reasons why we had that was because we took delivery of this additional aircraft, and there was some delay in the start date or in the date to start operations. That has since been resolved. So since then, we've had no issues or no operational constraints. Of course, lesson learned, going forward, we'll wait to get firmer delivery dates, and then we'll open up the sales.
Great. You also have Bombay as one of your, of course, most prominent outgoing, spot sector when it comes to domestic and international flights. How about Delhi?
We've been growing across both Delhi and Bombay over the last 8 years of existence. So Delhi, at this stage, we operate about 75 to 76 flights a day, domestic. And of course, we have international flights as well, which is especially all the long haul flights, which is London, Paris and Frankfurt, are all from Delhi. In addition, we also operate to Bangkok, Singapore, Dhaka and some of these other points. But the real growth over the last year and a half has been at Bombay. We've again, in 2019, we were only at 11 departures out of Bombay. That went up to 38 when Jet Airways suspended. That was in 2019. But now we sit at almost 55 departures. So we have expanded domestically out of Bombay quite significantly. And in fact, if we look at the points we connect from Bombay internationally, we have about 12 destinations, including Mauritius, that's coming up. So it is a significant presence in Bombay. In Delhi, we have our continued presence, and there will be more coming up.
That's good to know. I'm going to try and now take the financial dynamics a bit just to understand how do you see the financials of the company going forward? Of course, Q3 has been profitable. You did share about Q4 and the upcoming expectations that you have. Do you see the need of a fund infusion in the future?
Not at this time. I think we are thankful that we've been able to manage our cash flows pretty well. So it's been positive this year. Even looking ahead, I think we've reached that stage, hopefully, where we might be able to self-sustain. Of course, touch wood, you never know what's going to happen in aviation, but that's our expectation. As far as looking ahead, there are some challenges as well. As much as we'd love to say that of course, we were profitable in Q3 and we hope to continue that performance. But there are some black clouds, as always, with aviation. The US dollar being strong. And
the ATF price?
The ATF price, which thankfully has been a little bit benign, but you never know when that's going to shoot up. There's also the fact that a lot of contracts do have escalation clauses. So cost of supply materials as manufacturing costs increase, we will have to pay more for many of these things as well. So there is a general cost increase, as you would expect, because of the war, because of everything that's happening. And last but not the least, I think the inflation and the recession worries in the Western world. Of course, to be honest, India, I think to a certain extent is insulated or doing much better. But we live in a globally connected world. So there might be an impact down the road, maybe not to the same extent, but that's something we're watching out for.
Great. You did talk about black clouds. I'm going to take on a lighter note, ask you that are competitive airlines also covered under these black clouds? Do you see them as a challenge?
I wouldn't call them clouds. They are friendly neighbors. But yes, I mean, Indian aviation has always been extremely challenging. The fact that 80% of the domestic market share is captured by low-cost airlines and we operate a full-service carrier is in itself one of the challenges, because obviously in a market that's dominated by low-cost carriers, the fares and the ticket prices are kind of, there's a mental match to what the low-cost carriers provide because they are the dominant players. But having said that, we've been able to provide value, I believe, and bring value to the table. We've been able to attract our own clientele. The fact that we are a Tata and Singapore Airlines brand, I think, has given us a lot of impetus, especially when times like COVID come about. So we've been able to see a gravitation towards our brand, which we're very thankful for.
Great. Let me ask the big question that is in the room, and this is, of course, on the integration and collaboration of Air India and Vistara. What's the update? What is the future going to look like?
I think it's still a little bit early to say. I'm sure you know that in November the shareholders have made an announcement that there's going to be a merger or an integration. So the plans are underway. Of course, there are multiple streams or multiple things that have to be taken up. There's the approval that's required from various authorities. So that process has kick-started, whether it's the Competition Commission or whether it's from other competitive regimes. So that will be one. And then, of course, there's the entire process of organizational management and, bringing the teams together. So as much as we don't have competition approval at this time, we can't talk about commercials, we can't talk about sensitive information. But there are discussions, which I'm sure you've also seen in the press, about what the thought process is about integration. We believe that it will be a process where we will be very transparent. I've been, informing or talking to my staff on a regular basis as well on what's happening. But it's going to take a few months before we see any fruition to this, because it's something that's just started off.
Great. I'm not getting into the details, but once upon a time you did see Air India as a competition, but now it's going to be more of a collaboration. Am I right?
It is still competition till we get approval from the authorities. We still fly on a lot of routes, parallel routes. We fly on international routes as well with them, and we compete with them. I mean, we cannot and should not be sitting down and doing this collaboration at this time until there is approval from the authorities. But yes, once that happens, we will have to sit down and see what we can do in an integrated entity.
But what could change for a consumer, for an Indian consumer after this merger, if and when it happens?
The biggest, I mean, if you look at Indian aviation and you look at the order of aircraft, you look at number of aircraft coming in, whether it's from Air India, whether it's from even Vistara, as I spoke about, or even the low-cost carriers, there is going to be a much bigger pot or a much bigger pie, because the expectation from the various think tanks is that there could be 1,000 plus aircraft delivered over the next 5 to 10 years. So to the consumer, there's going to be more choice, regardless of whether it's one entity or two. At least from this side of the house, there's going to be more options. You know that there are new airlines coming up. Akasa is also growing. There's potentially Jet that's coming up, and then Indigo and the others are here also ordering planes. So I think as far as the customer is concerned, there is going to be more choice. There's going to be more options, and from our perspective, I think we, as I believe the Air India side has also said, we want to, assuming there's an integration, set up a quality airline which is world renowned and which will also make Indians proud.
Great. You did talk about Akasa, and I must mention this to you that Akasa also has been in the recent times trying to pick up on the hospitality USP of consumers, which once upon a time was actually what Vistara started with, be it the food, be it the welcoming or the hospitality in flight. Do you see that as a challenge, or do you see that more of a betterment of the Indian aviation sector?
Well, first, I will take the liberty of correcting you. It's not what we started off with. It's what we still believe in, and it's what we do. And I think that's what our numbers say, and that's what our customers, seem to believe, and we are thankful for that. But I think it's a good thing. I mean, at the end of the day, customer experience is very important in an industry like aviation, which is so heavily service focused. It is every airline or every organization has its own philosophy. We are very clear in what we want to do and what we bring to the table, and more the merrier. I mean, we are up for competition.
Great. We're up for competition. That's a slogan I'm picking up from this interview with the CEO of Vistara. But before we end this interview, one last question, and I'd like to seek your comment. Lately, we've been seeing a lot of incidents where, of course, the unruly passengers and behavioral issues across flights are being reported. Of course, the regulator is involved in this. What is your say on this as a person who's heading an airline?
I think enough has been said and written about the various incidents, but the fact of the matter is, as an airline, the safety of our passengers and our staff and our crew comes first. So there's no taking away from that. And in fact, in all our internal processes and SOPs, that's what has been kept paramount. And we are thankful. I mean, there is a process where we train our crew, we train our staff on what needs to be done in such unfortunate situations. But it does happen. I mean, it does happen not just in India, it happens in other parts of the world. I'm sure you've seen various cases around the globe. Maybe COVID, for some reason, has made us humans a little bit more short-tempered. It could be that we were all cooped up at home for a long time, and therefore it could be that. Or it could just be that it is just various things falling into place and something just, clicking. But at the end of the day, I think the commitment that, I have to be honest, not just Vistara, but all airlines around the world do definitely make, is that the safety of our passengers and crew is of paramount importance, and nothing should come in the way of that.
Great. Thank you very much, sir, for talking to us on this chat, and we wish you luck for all the upcoming opportunities that the airline is eyeing on.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your time.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.